Good afternoon. My name is Mark. I'm with Gov Directions, and we're here at Gov School. We usually get started a few minutes after the hour. I'd like to let everybody know that today's session is being recorded live on YouTube. Others are participating directly on YouTube live channel at Gov Directions. And we'll get started here generally in a couple minutes after the hour to make sure everybody has enough time to get online. Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Mark, and here we are today at Gov School. And right before the holidays, I want to thank everybody for coming online. We send out about 45,000 emails every morning that are in our opt-in list for our daily alert, and this is our match that we send out. And I think about half of them got sent back today because everybody's out of office. So we just got bombarded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with those responses. So we know a lot of us are already enjoying the holidays, and we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and as you head into the new year, a safe and healthy new year for 2022. And we're going to end this year with one of my favorite sessions that I do, and it's really talking in general about the request for proposal. And what is a request for proposal, and how do you go about reading one, and what do you really look for in that document? And this is the one I start with every year, so we'll be doing another session right after the first of the year. I think it's the most important Gov School class that we do. We have a series of those, and I always encourage you to check out online. I'm gonna bounce back and forth with a different number of different websites, including our govschool.com website. And when you go there, of course, you'll see our motto, that is that we learn to win, help you learn to win government contracts. And you can sign up there. We'll always notify you. You can also check out our schedule of upcoming events. The RFP is this last one of the year. But on the first and third Thursdays, we actually have a session that we feature with Tammy Bailey Foltz, who actually helps you write the RFP. So this is the precursor to that more in-depth session. It takes about an hour and a half, and it's a good start for learning some of the fundamentals of how to respond to a request for proposals from a government agency. And then another premium is our Gov School Focus, which is really a mini boot camp. And there we do, I think, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And we'll have that on the schedule here pretty soon. And then we do some others, all of which are always in our library. And of course, for those watching this right now on YouTube Live, you can go there and find those series of sessions that we have set aside for you just to help you learn. We know that we learned early on, in fact, that if we provided you more education, that you're going to win more contracts. And that's really the second part of success. The first part is always finding the right and pinpointing the right document and request. And I'm going to help you see that, learn a little bit more about that today as we go on. We continue, and individuals will come on and off. If you want a copy of this session, you can go to YouTube Live right after, and you can see the YouTube recording, and it'll be there for you so you can refer back to it. I have a quick PowerPoint that I would help guide me through, but I do want to bounce back and forth and answer questions that you might have. This is one of our live series sessions, and we want to make sure that you let us know what you're looking for, and how we can help you. So you've got the chat box there. I'm going to type in, and I want to go ahead and ask for your forgiveness if I don't catch you right away when you ask a question. You can also raise your hand, and I'll potentially call on you. Just be aware that this is a recorded version, and we are live for your own privacy concerns. But here is our chat room, and if you want to tell me a little bit about your business, We generally do not really talk back and forth between each other, except for when you ask a question. I'll call out that question directly. They tell you about your business, what kind of RFPs you're looking for. Whenever I go to our sessions, part of the session a lot, on the actual GovDirections website, I'll try to make that at the point of reference. The terminology, you see a lot of different acronyms out there, but the RFP is one you're going to need to become very familiar with, or the ITB, the invitation to bid. The RFP, of course, stands for Request for Proposals, and this is generally the solicitation instrument that governments will use to notify you they're looking for someone to work with. And contrary to popular belief, whenever a government issues an RFP, it's not a done deal. Okay, it really is an active solicitation. They're wanting you to respond. If there was, some sort of, justification for a direct sole sourcing, they wouldn't even go to that level. So when you get to the stage of an RFP, that's an elaborate decision-making process. So they want competitive bids and competitive responses. And so they're looking for you as the subject matter expert to respond back to them. So just always know that whenever you enter into government business. This particular session today, what I'm going to do is identify the structure of an request for proposal. And we're going to actually walk through each section briefly and explain its importance. And I'm going to show you an actual RFP that as an example and we will maybe go online and look at a couple of those to see really what sections you need to watch out for and how to quickly kind of review those. Although it should not be taken whenever you actually decide you're going to respond to an RFP, don't go in there and do that on a quick basis. Be very thorough. But whenever you're initially browsing to see potential opportunities, right now there's over 40,000 active RFPs on our website. You certainly don't want to read every one of those. So you want to learn to where to watch out for. Go in there very quickly, see what that scope is for, what the scope of the project is about, and know how to read that, and then focus on those RFPs that meet your what I call indicators of success. This is, if I bid on this one, I'm going to have a high degree or probability that I'm going to win that RFP, and I'll be doing business for that government. And they shy away from those that you have a low probability. You don't want to waste a lot of time, and I'll kind of help you understand how to pinpoint those. Another I'll use some quotes, and I like to give some quotes from around the business area and things we should be aware of. But here's one from Tom Hanks, Legally Wrong, kind of a quasi business and fun process. And he was a coach of a women's baseball team or softball team, and his quote there was, "It's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it." So just as you look out there, and sometimes you think it's a fun game, and playing baseball, and then you realize all the hard work really goes into it, and everybody can be involved in something like that. But if you really want to be in the big leagues, then you gotta it's hard, and you gotta know how to do that. And practice really kind of makes perfection, and be aware of that going into it, that you really do have to focus in order to win a government contract. It's not something that's just going to come to you. If it came to everybody, then everybody would be doing it. I always, I'll use the term contracted instruments because it's sort of the harmony of doing business with government, and they use different musical platforms to do that business. And I'm going to call those attention to some of the ones that you may come across. The first one is a request for information, the RFI. The request for information is a document where a government comes in. Maybe sometimes I even have the word source of salt there, but they're looking. They're wanting to know who's interested, who's able to provide the kind of services that they're seeking, or the supplies, and they want to make sure that anybody who has an interest that can express that. And one of the documents that you need to be aware of as you enter into this business is your capability statement. If you don't have a capability statement, you will hear me echo over and over again how important that is. And we do sessions on capability statements, and we'll be doing one of those again right after the first year. But you have some already in our library. But the typical response back to an RFI would be to send someone your capability statement or some of the information that you would find on that. And it's typically very generic. Oftentimes whenever they do a source of salt or request for information, they can move really quickly to a purchase or an invitation to bid or request for quotes or request for or proposals from that situation, but only to the ones that have responded, the ones that they have sometimes, have pre-qualified. In fact, in the other type, other instruments often used is a request simply for qualifications. The difference between those two is that, basically in the qualifications requirement, they're looking for something specific, like a specific type of engineering skill, legal skill, maybe a doctorate of some sort. And so they're looking more of, you got to have these qualifications. They want everybody on the same qualified level responding to an RFP or an invitation to quote that are already qualified in the sense they're competing. Everybody is sort of apple to apple comparison. This is oftentimes driven by the industry representatives themselves. So, the consulting engineers only want to compete against those who are qualified as they are, and they set those qualification standards typically. Invitation to quote itself, there you'll find there's something somewhat simplified version or commonly understood. Everyone who would respond to that would know exactly what that government agency is looking for. And so it's nothing that's going to be too elaborate, okay? And so they can just pick up the phone sometimes and call you and say, hey, we need 10 of these widgets. You understand what these widgets are, and just give me a quote. Or they may give you a 2 or 3 day window, and then anybody who's interested can quote us, and then we're going to go with the lowest quote. Because everything's all, at the end of the day, that everybody's fitting against and providing the same level of service or the same type of supply. It's very straightforward. And nothing should be too elaborate. And sometimes this is not typically not a large price point. So they need this, they need 3 air filters for the vehicles by Friday kind of approach, as opposed to maybe providing air filters for the entire year. And there they'll have an invitation to bid or request for bids. And those documents, the specifications are there. They're very they make clear of their what they're looking for, and when you bid, almost always going to be best value or lowest price, because everybody once again is bidding the same item. Oftentimes not mentioning a brand name, but the specifications. When you read those, you realize what that only one brand potentially can fit that. As opposed to and sort of an open call for you to respond back with a variety of items that are not necessarily uniform. So uniformity is important for an invitation to bid, and you'll see those. Generally give you about 2 week to 3 week time window to respond back to them. Oftentimes at the federal level, this is the combined synopsis or the solicitation itself, and they'll do that. Many times at local government level, it's a closed or sealed bid process, often opened up on the internet just nowadays, so everybody could see it, or in a bid room of some sort, where people are invited in to see that. Not so much at the federal government anymore. That's not really how it happens. They just go ahead and just take quotes. They're on some sort of transmission board of some sort where you're providing information to the internet, and they're just pulling that bid out for you. And then of course we have my favorite, the request for proposal. And RFPs themselves, the government, pretty much knows what they're trying to achieve, what the objective is, and they're going to assign that potentially by a decision-making body like the Board of Commissioners or the the school board, or the city council, or maybe the directors of a department or division. But they're not exactly, they're not the subject matter expert on the topic. So you are, as an individual or consultant who's going to provide a service, or you might have a particular type of a software that you're going to provide to them. But they generally know what they want. They're looking for you as the subject matter expert to guide them. And so what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, what we want you to do is, in your response back to us, we want you to be, we want to provide a sample format so we can at least come back and compare you apple to apple the best we can. But we are going to really depend on you to tell us about your methodology. And methodology becomes a big part of that, and how you propose meeting their goals and objectives as an organization. So anytime you're working with government, these are the primary methods, and you'll see, different versions of those. And, like on an RFP, for example, it could be an agile environment, or you might hear about agile procurement, or, best value, or other types of combined situations and sort of hybrid models. But Almost always, though, the request for proposal is going to be the primary vehicle to acquire your services in the government sector. And so, just quickly, what is a request for proposal? Just, the clear definition, it is an active solicitation. That means the government wants to do business with you. In our country, in the United States, it is a clear goal of government to work with private sector organizations to accomplish their objectives. Governments actively solicit private sector organizations or nonprofits to serve them, and oftentimes in a joint type of relationship. And so that's important to understand. So that process itself is made through a bidding situation by the actual agency who's going to control that. Our decision-making bodies are involved in that, and they're asking you as a company who might be interested. You have to express that interest to provide them a service or a valuable asset that they're seeking. And I would point out that during our situation with COVID over the last now, it seems like we're going up on 2 years here now since we first started hearing that word repeatedly, but that has been, once again, a clear message sent from our federal government, state and local governments that they wanted the private sectors to be actively involved in providing the services supplies necessary for us to get through this pandemic. In fact, what you have seen over the last few years, a significant increase in that involvement from about a $4 trillion marketplace to now we're looking at about a $6.5 trillion marketplace total. And so there's a lot of opportunities that do exist. It does exist for private sectors to be involved. Whenever an RFP is issued, these are the typical parts that you see. First, you see a statement of work. You see technical specifications, potentially the schedule of how they want you to provide a list of deliverables. There's a contract term and all the conditions are spelled out, if not at the beginning, before the end of the selection. They will give you a format of proposal, and this is the document that they want you to use in order to respond back to them. And how they want they will tell you how they want the sections written up. Almost always, though, asking you for these basic items. They're looking for your qualification and experience, and they're going to tell you how to explain that to them. Okay. They're also going to want to know your methodology, how you're going to actually achieve the objectives. That's all going to be written up in that format of proposal. And there they're going to tell you, how many pages they want. Sometimes it's limiting, sometimes it's not. You're always to follow those instructions. The first piece of advice I give any new client is never be creative when working with government. You want to make sure when you first respond that you're following instructions. They're going to tell you exactly what they want, and it's important that you honor that and you meet that, because they're that first individual that you're really trying to get past in order to work with that agency is a procurement officer, and their primary objective is to make sure you're following the rules. Their objective at this point is not to be actually hire you or to issue the RFP the actual award of a contract to you. Generally, sometimes an invitation to bid they are, but not here. Here in RFP, they're basically making sure you can follow instructions. They want to make sure that you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and you've done everything they've said to do. You've signed on page 2, 3, 4, and 6. If they've told you to do that, they're looking to see that you've got the ability to meet them. Because at the end of the day, the last thing any procurement officer wants to do is be embarrassed. They really don't want to hire someone and they can't perform, and that means that whenever they pass you through their gate, they are confident that you're going to be able to meet the objectives, the statement of work. You're going to be able to meet the schedule and the list of deliverables that they spelled out. So it's important that you fully understand those when you're responding to them. So remember that going into it. You also, your qualification experience there, they're going to tell you what they're looking for. And oftentimes they're going to give you some guidelines. Say, we want, 5 to 7 years experience. We want to see your, the contracts that you've issued. Here, it's always important that you take the best, sort of the best face approach. Sometimes we don't have 5 to 7 years experience in this particular area. And we may say we need to translate what we've done prior to how it could, supplement that, or why it's just as good, or the same way you might sell yourself whenever you're trying to get a new job. But almost all of us who are entrepreneurs specifically, that right now we're at a record level of new business creation, and new businesses seeking to work with government. So they recognize that there's a lot of new companies coming in, with great ideas and new ways of doing things. They're not always just going to rule you out simply because you don't meet that 5 to 7 year requirement that they may have listed. Okay, so just because something is requested, it doesn't mean that you have to meet it all the time. Okay, so but it also means that you shouldn't ignore it. Okay, so always speak to it, and then sell yourself in the right way and your experience as well. Many times they'll say we want to see some like experience, with other governments, and everybody started somewhere. Right? When I first started some 30 years ago working with governments, I had no contracts at all. And so now I've actually got over 350 under my belt, and still adding to those, and now 34 states. But here, whenever I started with nothing and no organizations, I had to really win. So I started with a smaller government in an area that the country's in Vermont, frankly, where it was a smaller government, and I knew I could do the business, and I won them over with selling them on how while I might have all the experience they had that they were seeking, I do know what I'm talking about, and here is why I started my business, and then that sold them. And so it's also a point of just basically your sort of the ABCs of writing. I'll talk about those, but also always be closing. ABCs of actually selling. And so when you go into that cost breakdown part, there, it could be specifically spelled out. Most times in an RFP, they're going to tell you it's kind of what they're looking for you to respond back to. But they want to ask you to put it in a separate document, maybe a separate envelope even, because they generally have a very low percentage of the initial selection process, and almost always negotiated. But they oftentimes want you to be sort of make sure you're in the same ballpark, on pricing points. Okay, and so you want to go out there and you want to do your research. And we have a specific class and how to go about doing pricing. I'm going to mention that in a few minutes, but know where you're at and how to respond, and even use that as more of for your indicator of success. And that on a smaller government is not going to be able to spend sometimes as much as the larger government. So oftentimes we may not want to mess with a smaller government just because we're looking for the big project. And other times though, when you first start out, like I did in Vermont, I went for that small project because I knew that the larger companies were bypassing that. And so there I went in with a good price, and so I didn't buy the business, but they want me to be successful and I have to be able to fulfill. But I did give them a very attractive, with a low cost margin for me. So that's a way to sort of break into it. But oftentimes doing that cost breakdown separately. And then always understand the evaluation criteria. Governments are always clear in how they're going to do things. Okay, so they're going to tell you exactly how they're going to evaluate you, and what percentage of the points, almost a rubric of selection. And so you need to have somebody evaluate you before you send your project off. So I think it's because there is no school of evaluation, there's no school of scoring. So the way your maybe 3 or 4 friends evaluate your proposal, you'd probably have a very high degree of comparability with a local government evaluating it. Most times though, it's basically going through and developing that checklist of things they requested and checking it off, making sure you've met everything that they've asked for, and consider that. But security are your typical parts. You're going to see some other, maybe some special forms that you have to have and provide. And what you're going to want to do, is have a Google Drive, okay, or some sort of drive on your computer, and you'll go in there and you're going to, I would have folders for each of these areas: statement of work, technical specifications, schedule, and I'd start, maybe flipping and pasting those contracts that I'm pursuing and storing that information, and then even start looking and say, well, if it says this kind of statement of work and I bid on it, I'm going to likely win this one, or if it has this type of statement of work, and I start comparing them. But have it all there and start understanding what agencies are looking for in your field, and contract terms, conditions, the formats of proposals, And you'll find that as you do that, it's going to expedite your process. You're going to speed up your process in the future as you are able to respond to things a lot quicker, because you're going to know which ones that you can win real quick, and you're going to find that a lot of times they're asking for the exact same thing. Okay, governments are copying the same details from town to town. Sometimes I even see in the RFPs the name of another government they actually copied from. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake. So when you respond back, make sure you got the right government's name on there. But seriously, go in there and you start that Google Drive for each of these. So your qualification experience, you can drop that for a particular, just pull it out and put it into the right folder. So you may want to have, if you have experience levels in different states, for example, and so if you're responding to one in Georgia, you want to put, Georgia qualifications. You respond to one in New Mexico, you want to have New Mexico experience and so forth. So have those documents ready to go, and the more you store those, the better you're going to be. And it's also important. I talk about pinpointing, but having information like that so you can refer back to it. You're going to meet this Coldplay quote, "You're the one that I wanted to find." Because when you see that, you'll start seeing out of 40,000 RFPs, or maybe the 100 that potentially can match you that are active, and you're going to look at one, you're going to say, "I can win this contract." Okay, you're going to know that, and you're not going to waste your time on the ones that you really didn't want to find. They maybe stumbled their way in front of you, but it's not the ones that you're looking for. You just bypass those very quickly. And so it's important that you start learning that process. In fact, that happened to me. There was one RFP that I was looking at. It was in Carter County, Tennessee. It was in a government. It was in a state near Georgia. I didn't win. I haven't won a lot of contracts in Tennessee. In fact, I think I only won. But it was one that talked to me. It's for salary survey, compensation analysis. That's been training in graduate school, and that's what I've done in my career working with government. In fact, this is one reason we started up Gov Directions, is that we were looking for contracts, and this is all how difficult it was. And say, hey, with this business idea and a business solution, and we can actually put contracts in front of you. And this past year, just toot our own horn, we matched up over 400 million contract opportunities to our clients, for who basically are looking in different areas in different states, and through those algorithms have been able to do that. And as with anything, when you're looking at an RFP, also remember that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So if you've got 2 days to do something, you're going to do it in 2 days. If you've got 2 weeks to do it, it's going to take all 2 weeks. Just remember that's Parkinson's law. Give yourself some time, budget that time out, and making sure that you meet those goals and objectives as you go in. I wouldn't, if you have a full month to do an RFP or prepare a response, I wouldn't get it done in the first 2 days and send it off. I'd wait over time and maybe send it 2 or 3 days off before it actually is due. That way, if something does change, you have time to change it, and then you have time to make sure the work is fulfilled. I wouldn't sit around and dwell on it, though. That's another thing, a part of that equation, or that quote there, that you don't want to just constantly just sit there and dwell on what particular RFP. That move it forward, even though it's still expensive in time. Other tips when you're looking at one, you read the entire proposal. You pay attention to the areas that we talked about here. What I typically do is set it aside and think about it, maybe a couple of days, come back, and after I talk to my colleagues, make sure it's a good fit, and then I complete the proposal, generally at 1 or 2 settings, and then lay it aside, have it approved, and before I send it off, making sure that everything's done. These are your sample tips. Anytime you write a paper of some sort, this is how you approach it, and you'll find you'll have success during that process. The only course that I know of work is an Einstein. This is really my favorite quote of all time, and what I really sort of self-styled my own business experience with. But the only source of knowledge is experience. So get in there and dive in there. Start writing the RFP. Start getting it done, and you'll find you'll have more success with more experience. And it's just can't tell you how truthful that is. So let's take a look at one of the responses in one of these. And so I would want to point out that I'm going to give you sort of a tutorial today, but the more detailed is that one I spoke to earlier, an RFP writing session. You should have, in this invitation, been given a free. This is our complimentary of us for during the holidays. It's traditionally a $75 value. So I encourage you, if you have to choose one of the two that you want to look at, this is a great one. Anytime in the new year, just sign up for that using that special code today, and you should do that. So let's pop over to Gov Directions, and I'm just going to pull out a couple of so kind of show you how to really kind of look for the ones that you want to, that you were supposed to find. So if we go in and excuse me, let me get a little drink here. Add Gov Directions. And a lot of times when we're going in, we can do a keyword search of some sort. As you know, we've got right now some 41,578 active listings. We're only looking at active listings, and that's important. If some of you are still looking at us, this important differentiator between other services. I don't care if you go to page 6 or if you go to page 400, you're still going to see active contracts. Okay, we don't not pass page 3 or 3, you're just going to start seeing all the expired bids. So watch out. We call that being bid winked. So sometimes companies, people that cut in these business, they will fool us a little bit, and you can fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, then that old saying. I think you look at George Bush has that saying, but in Gov Directions, we don't do that. There's no bait switch. We actually have a proof of work concept, and you can literally just step through all 41,000 listings. And I would just point out that, unlike other services, we do not work with any government agency. We only work on behalf of our members. And that, there's some third-party systems or software as a service that are out there that you may have to register with when you're looking at a government, and they'll advertise their affiliation with government. There's a limiting factor where you're only viewing what the government wants you to see at that point in time. We operate more like a newspaper. We're collecting, we're aggregating, we're an aggregator. And so you'll see a lot more listings. And in fact, we don't care if governments work with a third party. There's probably about 30 of those out there in the United States, maybe about 2,000 governments use them out of 100,000. And they just really kind of contribute to the noise that's out there. And so we pull all those together regardless. And while their systems will only work with the ones that they're working with. So that just to point some of those big differences out. But governments do, like us, we're a very cost-effective way for them to get the information to you. We matched up over 400 million last year to our membership, and so because of that, we have about 80% of our listings posted directly by government, either through a direct feed of some sort that we pull, or they're posting it to us directly. Like a couple of this sent up just a few minutes ago from Panama City, Florida. And so I think maybe Panama City Beach, I forget. It come in, there's constantly flowing in. So with that volume, and we publish about 5,000 RFPs a day, it has to be organized in some way. So whenever you're looking, you're trying to find the one that you want to find, you can do that in a couple of different ways. The first, is through our categorization system. Okay, we have about 160 industries that we work with. They're built around your needs and what you're looking for. So if you're looking for human resource staffing, like I do sometimes, I can just click on that listing, come to it very quickly, and see those listings that are out there that match generally. Okay. And another way is to come in and do a keyword search. And so when you remember homepage, we're actually going to give you some tools and some bells and whistles. You'll get that daily alert to match you based on those account settings, but you can also just search by keyword. And this is a Boolean search technique. So you put things in quotes, then it has to be exact. Okay, but it's also more friendly, but it's not a Google search. So we don't give you too many listings. But if I went in and just did something like compensation, because I do compensation studies, and I could just generically search, it's going to take those 41,000 listings and give me a smaller subset. This could be a little bit larger because they might be talking about the compensation for a project. So if I want to come in after I do that, and I cull down to maybe 1,000 listings, and even make it smaller, I can do that by going in and maybe even searching another word like classification, or go in and put in compensation and classification. It is a Boolean search technique. Okay, so you can do that. And so both this exact wording has to be there. Okay, and then I can search. And I'm not going to do that right now, but I can do that and search and go in, and I can use conjunctions like and and or. And here I can go in very quickly, and I can sort those. Once I do a bigger search, and I could call through by industry. This is the blue toggle bar, meaning that any of these titles can be used to sort. And so I can then pop through and maybe go on down to, maybe I was looking at climate change or something, but I can look at human resources and staffing and lo and behold, here are all my compensation classification plans. Okay. And so I can step through, kind of see some of those. It's going to be in that area. Maybe I like to work in Wyoming. I don't know what it is, but I've done a lot of projects in Wyoming. And it's one of my favorite states. I don't know if you've ever been there, but you can jump in there, and I'm gonna go in there and I could have did my account here. But plus just really good people in Wyoming, and I like that. And I actually tell folks the story. I drove across Wyoming one time, and I experienced all 4 seasons one day. It started out and it snowed on me, sunny, and I would actually drove a whole hour without seeing one person. Good drives if you want to get away. But here it is, Jackson Hole area. Jackson, Wyoming is a great place to be. Is you're near just a good location. That's one of my qualifiers at this point in my life, is that I enjoy where I want to work at. And as you know, nowadays a lot of things are remote, and you can limiting yourself to a territory is not necessarily the best thing anymore, because you can work in any state. And some folks come to me and ask me about certifications. I wouldn't need to go be certified in Jackson in Wyoming for any reason. I'm going to be qualified to work on this project regardless of what state I'm in, as long as I'm in business in the state somewhere. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of dry throat. So here we are, and I can actually capture this and put it in my capture folder, where I go in and I can look at the ones I'm always working. I view our capture opportunities, and this one's here. I may want to store it there until somebody wins it. Some of the others I might be looking at, I may decide, I was interested in this one, but I didn't want to bid on it. I'm going to remove it. Keep my capture folder clean. I'm going to potentially even share this with my capture manager. We have the service available to you. If you have that need, somebody can go and pull those documents for me and help you out. Ask us about that. It's a premium service to our members, but it allows me to know which contracts I'm going to be working, because I can watch those and eventually see even who's winning contracts. I'm going to jump around who's winning. You drop in here. You can actually go in and scroll through some of the more recent winners. Go over here and look at the types of products they're selling, look at the details, how much it bought at, zoom in to a particular area, and see, let's see who's winning what in Wyoming. And so here the Wyoming projects, there's some out there in there, and we can actually give you a specialized who's winning report, a competitor report in your marketplace. If you need that, just give us a call. This is it's important information. I can drill in, you can see the Wyoming contract near Yellowstone. In fact, here's one for abatement. Okay, so you can do that, and you actually can go in your back product as well. So I can just look at the ones, but just details. So have some experience working in there and knowing the price points. That's how you go in and look at pricing. But here's that RFP with a link. Here's when it's due. Here's the agent. Here's who to contact. Sometimes they'll give it specifically to you. Sometimes that's more generic. But there's something detailed they want you to know. But if I'm familiar with class and comp studies, I don't need to know anything else here. But sometimes they'll drop in some more information. If there's a competitive intelligence that we can help you with, maybe something specific, we'll put it in here in the special notes for you. Maybe if I'm not really familiar with where Jackson's at, I'll just click that and go in and look and see. And so it's just a Google mapping technology. But here I am, Taylor Jackson. Here's the RFP. I've clicked on it. It's right in front of me. They're looking at a project. It's going to be, they want to try to implement summer. Someone will have to be there from now until maybe the due date was January. It's probably February, March, April. That's going to be some good skiing weather. If you're a skier, you might want to go bid on this project. Okay, just so here's the details where it's due at. And when you're looking through here, that's the first thing I always pull out. Make sure the title should be self-explanatory. Who or where or what. This is almost always there. How to get in touch with them. If they want me to work with a specific individual, they usually will have that person's name right there or in the very first page somewhere. And so I'm looking through this area, and so they're going to give me the general notice. Once again, all the key details are what you should find in a notice. Here is Roxanne's going to be the primary contact person, and her email there. I'm not going to, just bother her, email and bother her or say, hey, I'm going to bid on this contract. I'm going to reach out to her if I have something really I need or specific. They should be telling me everything I need here. It's probably not a good practice just to reach out to them until you actually need to do that. Okay, if it wasn't at an RFP stage, maybe still an RFI, then you want to reach out. You want to send them your capability statement, or if you're in, what we call our upcoming stage, because we go through and we call through the budgets, and we've already even identified this project it's coming soon before they issue the RFP. At that point, you do want to reach out and have your more traditional business development practices. Okay, so that's there for you. We're looking at the details here, and they want me to respond by January 14th at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. I think I don't remember what Mountain Time is, but if I don't, I better go up there and book that on my calendar at the appropriate time frame so I understand that. Okay, because the last thing I want to do is have it get there at 4 p.m. California time, and I meant to do it Mountain Time. Okay, I think they're saying, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. And and so I'm on Eastern time, so that's probably a little familiar, but always be familiar with these details, because the last thing I want to do is get there at 4:01 and then not receive consideration. It's a complete waste. Okay, and so who to contact, and so on. If they gave me the website, I'm gonna go online just to check that website out, get familiar with it, look at maybe who the leaders are, and they would tell me some details in here that I'm gonna start watching. I might even want to go back to the city council meetings and see what they talked about before they issued the RFP, so I can see what what the community flavor of the community is all about. What kind of money were they talking about anyway? I can almost always go in and pull out the budget for this. I'm not going to ask them for that. I'm just going to go up there and look. Okay, and they're going to give me a quick table of contents, and this table is going to outline the document for me. So it's a 14-page document. It's not anything too elaborate, but just like I pointed out earlier, they're going to give me an introduction. They're going to give me a scope. They're going to tell me the format of the proposal. They're going to give me a timeline, and they're going to give me an evaluation. Okay, and then somewhere in here, they're going to tell me what kind of experience you're going to be looking for. Okay, so the big items I talked about here. Okay, I'm going to read this thing all the way through before I decide I want to bid on it. But I'm already telling you that this one here, it's already met 3 of my indicators of success. The first is it's that place I want to work. Okay, so I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be enthused. This is my own personal indicators. You need to develop yours and know which ones that you're looking for. Second is that it's in the West. I like to work in the West. Okay. Third is the size of the town. I know I've looked at it before we talked today. It's got the right population statistics. It's right in my wheelhouse. I don't go in and I don't bid on the city of Atlanta, even though I can look outside my window right here and see the city of Atlanta City Hall. I don't bid on a project that's that size. It's not, I'm never going to win it. And, it just isn't my cup of tea. It's not in my wheelhouse. So, but here, it's something that I want to do. Okay. And so I'm going to go in there. I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to look at the purpose. And then they want me to review something. They want me to do a particular service or supply. And automatically, I know I can do this. That's the 4th indicator of success. I can fulfill this contract. And probably is the first one I should be looking at instead of the location. Okay, but if you've never been to Jackson, Oklahoma, you should go there because you understand what I'm talking about. So here we go. You present the findings. I can do all this. They're going to tell me exactly. They're going to give me a step-by-step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to actually frame my response back to them in the same. I'm going to copy and paste exactly what they do it, but in the same iteration of words that they use and the process that they talk about. Because frankly, this is what everybody requests when they're looking at this. But I can do each of these. And so if there's something in here I can't do, at that time I'm going to start thinking about teaming with partners. And look at that. For example, they want to basically, they also want to talk about gender and diversity, pay equity. And, just look at me, I'm a white guy. So this is the fact is I might have to reach out and understand that with somebody who's got a little bit more experience in that topic and bring them into the discussion and certainly what you want to do. You have that team of individuals ready to look at whenever you go into a project and who you want to pull together for that, knowing based on what they're telling you that they're looking at. And so, they're specifically talking about their public safety or police officers. I want to make sure that I can address that topic uniquely. And I've got a team of experts in public safety alone that can call on. So I'm building that team together. And they don't actually have to work for me. This could be some subcontractors that I use, and I could be the prime going into a project like this. Okay. And so I'm looking through there and I'm seeing the town manager, the assistant town manager, police. These are things I'm going to start watching for in at the website of this government too, and I'm going to go through and read the agendas, and I'm going to see that interaction there. So right away, this is what I'm seeing here is that this is driven by a public safety compensation problem. Okay, so I'm going to start thinking about in my head, where's a project like this that I may have done in this area first. Second, more importantly, I think that has had to deal with public safety wages. So I'm going to tie together those items, and so I'm going to also start picking up on identifying statistics that can be used in developing my pricing. Sometimes these are units of some sort for a particular widget, or maybe number of hours, or here, in my case, it's number of employees. That's an indicator. I traditionally work with smaller governments with maybe about 50 to about 250 employees. This is like right in that pricing will of success, and the indicators of success that I'm going to win. So if I bid on this, I already know that I'm going to have to be probably a 50 to 70 percentile chance I'm going to win this contract, because I've got other ones from the area. I've done them in this pay range. I've done them in this employee base range. I've done all this, so I'm not going to waste my time bidding on something. Okay, I've got to be competitive too. Okay, and so they're giving me some other details. I'm going to read through it, and they're going to tell me some names of departments and so forth. I'm also going to be looking at, if they're giving me these different departments, these are probably going to be the departments that are going to be involved in the actual final decision. So whenever I give them my methodology, I'm going to try to talk about those departments or my experience working with some of those departments. Okay, and that's important that I'm drawing in. I'm not just ignoring the things that they told me. I'm preparing that detail. And so as I continue to look through here, they're going to tell me what kind of data, what kind of evaluation they want me to do specifically. I'll make sure I can do all that. See how it's all just spelled out very straightforward to you. They're going to give you the proposal requirements and submission. This is basically going to tell you how to do it. Okay, they're going to say proposal format. Okay, we want you to organize it, address these specific items. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm not going to ignore anything. If they, maybe I don't have something here. Okay, if I look at it, there's going to be something I don't have. I guarantee it. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to say, I don't have this. I can't do this, but this is why you still should hire me. Okay, I'm going to speak to it, spin it in the right way. And Tammy really walks us through how to do that in a very professional way. Okay, and only to all of that. There's something, if there's 1 or 2 items I can't do, I'm not going to just set it aside and not respond to them. That's just wasting my, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, I'm just going to address that because I've got the other 8 things that I'm going to do. I'm really good at it, and that's going to help overcompensate for the others. Okay, they will give me a timetable. I need to make sure I can get this. They want this started by February 8th. I literally, one time I had a contract in Cody area. It was Cody, and I flew all the way from Atlanta. I was getting ready to land in the town, and we couldn't land. I had to fly all the way back to Atlanta because there was a snowstorm there. So February is not a good time. So with that said, I need to be aware of that going into it, and that my price might have to go up just a little bit for issues related to weather, things of that nature. And so it's important that we always do that in our pricing structure. References, I'm gonna have those ready to go. It's gonna be in my Google Drive. I'm gonna try to pull out, first of all, some that are in the area, maybe in that there may be 5 or 6 state area, but also some that have something dealing with a police pay issue, or maybe the other is the size of the governments are somewhat similar or larger, or somewhat as complex as the town. What they're basically telling me here is this is a tourist area, so even though they're small in size, they have to deal with a lot of issues. And I'm aware of that going into it. Okay, and then the cost of services, they're going to want me to touch on that. Sometimes they'll it says do not include additional services, so I'm not going to include anything additional. Okay, pay attention to those. Do not do things. Okay, but here they might want me to put it in a sealed envelope. Sometimes they don't really want this. They want to wait till they get you into a competitive negotiation stage. Because remember, the first thing I'm trying to do here is getting past the person that's in charge of making sure I'm following the rules. Most likely, they're going to bring in the top 3 or top 4, and then they're going to talk to you in some capacity, and they'll probably tell us that. Okay, and then they're going to make that decision. And that's almost always the way an RFP is done. They also want proposals to be in a PDF format that allows for printing and hard copy in an 8.5 by 11 booklet. Okay, so meaning they're probably going to put it into the back, a folder for their board of some sort. So I got to make sure that's the case. In fact, I'm going to test it before I send it off. Okay, I'm going to make sure. Okay, I've had sometimes they want you to sign every page or something. I've had clients who failed to sign a page and they lost out on a $2 million RFP or contract. And you don't want to miss something so simple, that you actually send them a PDF that's 11 by 8. You don't want to have that happen. That could just really just ruin your whole day. Okay, if you got an inquiry, ask. There's rules of thought. Don't ask. Okay, wait till somebody else asks. They should have the capability of telling you exactly everything they want you to know with this RFP. You should be able to understand it, and then that's a good match. If they don't put something in there, you shouldn't assume they want you to do it. You just assume they don't want you to do it. Okay. And then if you get past the stage where you have to ask a question about it, then that should be at the negotiation stage. Okay, not at the very beginning, but you're going to watch because some folks will ask a lot of questions. So some of the novices. Okay, and so there you go in. You got the proprietary information off to all the standard. What you see here in Wyoming, you'll see in every Wyoming contract. You look at one in Minnesota, it's going to be very similar. Pay attention to timelines. Okay, got to meet the timelines. The evaluation criteria, most important. Okay, here they're telling me exactly how they're gonna grade me. Okay, so if I know that going into it, well, my goodness, I might as well grade myself before I send it off, or have a couple other people, and then look at the things they're asking about. Background and experience designing. Okay, toughness, or thoroughness, I guess. I mean, how do you measure that? I'm saying. So that's all very subjective. So get a 4 or 5 people, friends, people who take you seriously, look at your requirements. You're going to have a same level of response and grading as that you would find there in that community. If in this case here, if I knew some police officers, I might want to sit down and talk to them beforehand, just to make sure. Okay, and going into it, and then they're going to tell me how they're going to award it. This is always important. It's because this is probably going to tell you how they're going to pay you too. And sometimes it's pretty strict. Maybe they'll say here, you give us a proposed pay plan. They're going to say maybe we'll pay you half up front, half at the end. Sometimes they'll speak to all of that, and also about litigation, things of that nature. So you want to read that, and that's it. Okay, nothing too difficult. I'm ready to go fill this out. I might want to wait since it's not to January. I'll wait till after the new year. I might want to, start thinking about this now, and I'll get it done the first week. I'm not going to overwhelm myself, but remember that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So that's just there. So that's what we've done today. We've looked at a real life RFP. We've walked through it. I've shown you that it's not so difficult. Walk through each section, explain the support. We use an actual RFP in that process, which is, I think, helpful. And I'll be glad to actually do the same with you. If you want to make a book an appointment with us, if you go online here at the very top, if you're you can look at a personal demonstration, but you can also or hear that's stored, but you can also schedule one if you want. If you never have done, you just want to just walk through the website, schedule this one here, and you can choose a time. I'm actually in town all next week. That's why it's open. This is the time where we actually are down on our staff. Folks are working, but I usually work through the holidays to help them out, so they can get out and visit more with their family, and then I will spend time with my family a little bit in the first of the year. So we kind of all go back and forth. So I've got time next week if you want to book some. The other, if you want to actually walk through an RFP personally with me, and you want to book a 45-minute session, it is available to you. You can give us a call, or you can book it directly online. And then you got that free Gov School class. I encourage you to go in there and take advantage of that the way you found this today, and get a free. It's a $75 value and for new customers. And so I certainly would encourage you to do that if you never have. And that writing the RFP session is very good with Tammy. She does a really great job. So that's us today, and I'm going to leave. I haven't seen any questions in the chat room. If you have questions, you can raise your hand now and ask me. I'll be glad to help you. I am going to stop our share since the others are on YouTube. Okay. Any final questions? Well, thank you, everybody. You have yourself a great afternoon.